All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Hopefully, you can all hear me all right. My name is Jason Hanley, and I'm the Vice President of Education and Visitor Engagement here at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's great to be here this evening and be with all of you. Let me start out by thanking all of you for being part of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame family. All of you out there watching this evening are members. And it's the support from donors and members like you that helps us deliver our mission to engage, teach, and inspire through the power of rock and roll. In fact, I'm coming to you live tonight from the garage here at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, where we educate students all the time. Visitors can come in and perform and play in here. Of course, this space has been offline recently because of the current effects, obviously, of the COVID virus. But the rest of the museum is open. So it's been great to see some visitors here visiting us safely throughout the museum. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for this members and donors only special event that is a exhibit opening for our digital only brand new exhibit, Induction All Access Photography by Kevin Mazur. We're really excited to have this exhibit online. If you go to rockhall.com after this event, you'll be able to see the link right at the top of the main page to access the digital version of the exhibit of Kevin Mazur's photography. And then come the fall, you'll actually be able to come to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and visit the museum and see his photographs here hung on the wall in a traditional gallery style. So we hope all of you will join us for that when it opens physically as well. But you don't have to wait to come here until the fall. You can come anytime, obviously, with your membership. You have access to the museum year-round. You can visit us this summer and check out our brand new exhibit that we're just opening tomorrow, in fact, called It's Been Said All Along, Voices of Rage, Hope, and Empowerment. A great exhibit that we just put together in the last month, really thinking about what's been happening in the United States right now with social justice, thinking about the issues of racial inequality that we're all talking about that have been surrounding us, and the fact that musicians have been talking about this thing for hundreds of years, and looking at the history of rock and roll all the way back to the roots of rock and roll, how this issue has come up time and time again, and traced it from early artists all the way up to today's biggest stars. So hopefully you'll come and join us for that. And if you end up coming down to the museum on a Thursday or a Saturday, we've got live music outside. This year we're doing live and local. We're featuring Cleveland artists who are performing right here on our plaza stage. Again, a safe environment where you can grab a table by yourself or with your family or group and sit down and listen to some of the great artists. All of that is at rockhall.com. And I would also mention too, I mentioned education earlier, our great Rock Hall EDU digital platform. Please check it out if you yourself are a teacher. It's a great resource. We know a lot of teachers are going to be going into the new school year doing what they're calling blended learning. Sometime in school, sometime learning on the computer at home. And we're really proud that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's Rock Hall EDU is a digital platform for learning. And if you know someone in your family or a friend or someone who is a teacher, please send them our way. We'd love to have them be part of the platform. So tonight, it's really special. We're glad we were able to do this and come together in this digital space to celebrate the work of Kevin Mazur. One of the world's most esteemed celebrity photographers. Kevin's created iconic images of thousands of artists, and I mean iconic images. You're gonna see some tonight, and when you see Kevin's photographs, you know them because they're images you've seen already throughout your life. His work's been published in countless magazines, books, exhibitions, and on the covers of albums of legendary musicians. So we're gonna have a great conversation with him. We're also joined by the one and only Paul Shaffer. You know him as the band leader for many of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremonies. For 33 years, he served as the band leader for David Letterman's television show. He was the band leader for the Blues Brothers, and of course, the one and only world's most dangerous band. And we thank Paul so much for being here. The thing I'm personally excited about, we're gonna have tonight, is I think aside from Jan Wenner, Paul and Kevin have been at more induction ceremonies than anybody else. I believe, Kevin, you shot every induction ceremony except for 2. So that is a pretty great track record. Before we officially get the conversation started, though, I want to run a short video clip giving us a little bit of a sense of what this exhibit is all about and some of the work of Kevin Mazur. So Alex, our producer, Alex, go ahead and run that video for us, please.
Hi, my name's Kevin Mazur, and I've been photographing the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductions since 1986. I went through thousands and thousands of my photos to put together this exhibit. It was incredibly hard to narrow it down. Being a fan of live music and rock and roll, this was a dream job for me.
All right, thank you, Alex. That's enough to get you excited. I should also say to the audience as we're going here, you'll notice in the Zoom app down the bottom, you will see a Q&A area. There's also a chat. But if you want to ask questions of Kevin or Paul or myself through this event, please put them in the Q&A part of the app below. You can also even thumbs up and vote up questions you see there that you like and you want us to try and answer. Mandy, who is over here on my side from the Rock Hall, will be looking through all of those. So we'll be able to take some of those in the second part of the event. So please throw those down in the Q&A at the bottom. If you submitted already via email before the event, you don't have to add it again. We've already got those that came in before the event. So with that, I'll ask Kevin and Paul to unmute your mics if you can do that. And I have to say, as a warm welcome for Kevin here too, he and I were talking, if you caught the pre-show a minute when we were getting things set up, he's my brother here from Long Island. I'm a fellow Long Islander myself. And we were talking about my father's place and the band Zebra and some other great Long Island memories. Welcome, Kevin. Welcome, Paul. How you guys doing tonight?
Good, good.
Great. Hi, Kevin.
How you doing, Paul?
Great. I can't believe that we meet under these circumstances. I see you once a year for the past 33 years.
I know.
And now here we are again.
Are you working? So you working on the inductions for this year, the virtual one?
Absolutely not.
No.
I haven't, nothing to do with it. It's a new day.
I was hoping that you throwing out, working with the musicians and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I have no answer because I know nothing about it, but I'm looking forward to seeing it. I know who the inductor and the inductees are, and thrilled, can't wait.
Well, you always do such a great job, and I always look forward to see how you put everything together.
There were some amazing ones, and that's why I'm so thrilled to be here with you. I can't wait to see some of these shots.
Yeah, we've got a real treat for the audience tonight, Paul. You're right. Alex is going to help us put some images on the screen to help us walk through some of these amazing photographs, kind of like catching lightning in the bottle with some of these, right, Kevin?
Fantastic.
Kevin, let's start out just before we get rolling and looking at the photographs and talking about the Rock Hall inductions. And I promise some of our guests, between Paul and Kevin, we're definitely going to peel back the curtain with some cool moments tonight. But Kevin, why don't you tell us a little bit just about how you got started in photography? You and I were just even chatting about one of the first big concerts you ever went to was Led Zeppelin at Madison Square Garden. But tell us how you got into music and particularly into rock photography.
So I'm a fan just like all of you guys. My dad always played music in the house. We live on the water. We go out on the boat. He had his little transistor radio. We were listening to music all the time. So I started going to, just like I told you, to go see live music here on Long Island. I used to see Twisted Sister at Cheers, this band Zebra that we liked. That was a Led Zeppelin tribute band, the Good Rats, and all these other bands. And we'd constantly go out and see live music. And then I wanted to go see my first, first concert. And it was Led Zeppelin, 1977, Song Remains the Same tour. And you had to mail away to get tickets. And I was lucky enough to mail in and get 6 tickets. But when we went to the show, riding the Long Island Railroad into the city, it was one big party train right into Penn Station, to Madison Square Garden. And a lot of my friends, I said to them, where are you sitting? They're like, I don't have tickets, so we're going to scout. I go, scout? What do you mean you're going to scout? And we went to the show. We had a great time. And on the way back, we're all on the train. And they're going, we're going again tomorrow. I'm going, you got tickets for tomorrow? They go, no, we're going to scout. I go, well, I want to go again. I want to go scout because my tickets were in the nosebleeds. I want to try and get closer. So we went a second time. We scalped tickets on the train, me and my buddy, and then we were with the two other guys. And when we got into the city, this guy had 4 seats that were better than the 2 that we just bought that were right off the floor. And my friend said, oh, we shouldn't have bought these tickets. I go, well, I got the money. Let's scalp these and we'll sell the other ones. And that was it. Then I got hooked on scalping tickets to get closer and closer. And then we went a third night, and that's it. I was hooked. I just wanted to go to live music. And it was better to scalp. And it was fun, you know, that whole thing, you know, the anticipation, like what kind of seats I could get. You could, you know, instead of going to ticket, you know, I didn't even have Ticketmaster then, I think. I don't even remember, but trying to get tickets, and, you know, it was a crapshoot. But when you scalp, you could go there and go, oh, I want to go sit here. I want to sit there, and you'd hustle tickets.
That's a pretty amazing 3 nights in a row of Zeppelin. It's like the first big show you're going to. That's incredible. Now, I know one of the first shows I think that you shot professionally, or at least had an image published from, I think it was Fleetwood Mac and a picture of Stevie Nicks. Is that right?
No, the first time I snuck my camera into a show was at Nassau Coliseum for Fleetwood Mac. And I was in the 3rd row, and I brought my girlfriend and I photographed the show. And then I started, you know, I was hooked. I was like, wow, I want to keep shooting at shows. And I kept sneaking my camera in. And then later on, years later, I had all these pictures, and everybody said, you should do something with your photos. And I was like, you know, I didn't know what to do. You know, I was a big fan of, you know, Rolling Stone magazine and Annie Leibovitz. So I said, let me call Annie Leibovitz's studio. You know, I'll call Annie Leibovitz's studio. Maybe somebody could give me some advice. Lo and behold, Annie picked up the phone, and she gave me some advice. She told me to call a couple of photo agencies, and I called the photo agency, and I went down to this photo agency called Retina. They looked at all my photos. They go, wow, you got all these great pictures of Billy Joel. And we just had a request for Billy Joel. Is it all right if we take these and submit them? They called me up a week later, and they said, pick up People magazine next week. You're going to have a picture of Billy Joel in there. Whoa. And then that was it. I got published, and I just wanted to get published. I was like, my picture's in the magazine with a photo credit. That's all I wanted to do is get published. And my dream was to get published in Rolling Stone magazine. And then eventually, years later, I kept hustling Rolling Stone magazine. I finally got to go on a lot of assignments for them. And then eventually I was one of the staff photographers in the 90s for like 8 years.
Yeah, that's amazing, Kevin. And I think too, like you said, being a fan of music, it seems like the music and the artistry is so important to you. I think that's something I can see in your photography. You're able to capture that spirit and energy of rock and roll. What was it for you as you started then professionally trying to shoot and do that? What are you thinking of when you go to a show or you see a musician? What are you trying to get? What's that kind of moment you're looking for?
I'm trying to capture that moment in time, you know, because a photograph lasts forever, you know, and I have these great memories that I can look at forever and I could share with everybody. They'd be in magazines and websites, you know, Instagram now, social media. And, you know, I always look for those key moments to try and capture them. You know, back in the day, I didn't have a motor drive, and you're shooting manually. You got to manually focus. Now cameras, you know, you just put it in auto and it does everything for you. Back then it was a craft. I mean, it's still a craft now, but I mean, you really had to know your shit, you know. And, you know, when I was shooting for Rolling Stone magazine, one of the photo editors, Laurie Kotakfield, she taught me how to shoot for the magazine, because whenever she would critique my work and she would say to me, you know, one of the things that always stuck in my mind when I have young photographers work with me and give them tips, I said, you got to take photographs and keep in mind how it lays out in the magazine. You know, because Laurie would always say, I need a good horizontal shot for like a double page spread or the top of a magazine, and I need vertical shots to fill a full vertical picture in the magazine, a full page, you know, and same with the cover of magazines.
Yeah, so you're even thinking about where that photo is going to live and how it's going to look eventually as you're trying to get the shot, right?
Oh, yeah. And then, you know, and then certain bands, when you work with them, you know, I love shooting live music and capturing, you know, Pearl Jam's a big band that I love to photograph live. They're amazing. Green Day. And if you see my pictures in the exhibit, I nailed Eddie Vedder up in the air jumping.
Yeah.
Billy Joel Armstrong, because I know those moments. I'm looking through my camera the whole time. The worst is not looking in your camera the whole time, and something happens and you go, oh man, So I learned that at a young age. Never take your eye off the camera.
Is there a moment from that you can remember, one of those ones where you looked away from the camera for a second and you knew that was the shot, I missed it? Like, is there one you regret that you wish you had gotten over the years?
Oh yeah, no, I was switching camera bodies, and one of them was the concert for Sandy. I was switching my camera bodies, and Pete Townsend jumps in the air, and I'm like, oh man.
That was it.
That was one. And another time, Bono pulled me up on stage, and this is back in the day shooting film. Digital, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
So Bono pulls me up on stage with him and Edge on one of those ramps, and he's doing all this stuff in my camera, and I'm shooting. I'm going boom, 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 and then boom, end of a roll.
Oh.
And you're like, okay, what am I going to do? I'm 3 feet in front of him. Go, oh, hold on a second, guys.
I got to change the film.
So I had to kind of fake it like I'm still shooting,
That's good. You soldiered through. That's a good one to do, right? Well, hey, let's take a look at some of these great photos. I think, Kevin, we ended up with, you helped to curate about 60 photos that are in the exhibit. Obviously, as we were just talking in the beginning here with you and Paul, you were at almost every single induction ceremony, probably thousands and thousands of photos that you looked through to curate for this exhibit.
Thousands.
Have you digitized all those, or were you looking back through negatives, or?
Both slides. Rolling Stone always wanted you to shoot slides.
Yeah.
Color slides. So it's a lot of slides. My archive, I must have like 20 file cabinets full of slides that still have to be digitized. I have a lot of stuff digitized, but there's still a lot more. In everything from 2001 on is all digital photography. Because that was one of the things, is that when digital photography came around, I embraced it. Where a lot of photographers were like, I'll never shoot digital. I'm just going to shoot film, But I started shooting digital, and then me and my partners created Wire Image in 2001, because you needed a website for your work. And, the good thing was I worked with Rolling Stone magazine and all these other magazines. So I knew the publishing world, and I knew this website, Wire Image, would help not just magazines, but would help all my clients. Because now, by then, I was shooting for bands. I've been touring with the Stones since '88. I've been working with U2. I've been working with everybody. Billy Joel, Elton John. I met Elton John in '88, and I've been shooting with him ever since. I'm so blessed to have the job, to be a fan of music, and my passion's photography. I am just, it's the ultimate job.
That's awesome, man. I love it hearing, those of us who are able to work in an area related to our passion. It's an amazing thing to be able to do it for a living, right?
I know. Look at Paul. He's an amazing musician, and he gets to work with all these great, amazing, talented musicians, and they want to work with him. God, how blessed is he?
I put it the same way. It's a blessing.
Yeah.
It really. And for the, we've seen the rock and roll era at its peak. Come and go almost, I hate to say it, but we're moving on. But as far as the great players of that era, you captured them on film.
Yeah, but too, you created a lot of historical moments at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I see you, back in the day too, you and Bill Graham. Bill Graham would pull people out of the audience. Hey, come on, let's go up on stage. You want to jam? And then the following years, it was spontaneous, the beginning years, but then you got involved, and then you started setting up everything. I saw what you were doing. You were like, and you were enjoying what you were doing, and still do.
It was once in a lifetime, and I don't know if anybody else besides me has had that kind of experience. Maybe Midge Ure over in England.
Yeah, right.
But otherwise, yes, it's been a blessing, and I was just so grateful to have been involved with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame all these years.
Oh, and you still are, man. We don't want you to go anywhere.
That's right,
We
Paul.
want you every year.
Well, as we look at some of these, Kevin, I'll repeat something you just said for our audience who may not know. It's an interesting thing is some of the photos we'll look at tonight, we'll see this. This is only a small selection of the 60 in the exhibit. We'll maybe look at about 10 or 13 tonight. The induction ceremonies in the early days was held at the Waldorf Astoria in New York City. And it really was a sort of dinner and an inside industry thing. And these jams and performances were sort of a little bit more haphazard, and people would just come up and play. And as you mentioned, Paul and the production team started over the years turning them into bigger and bigger productions and planned performances, to the point where now the induction ceremonies is a major television production designed, worked with HBO. Artists have rehearsals, still these amazing once-in-a-lifetime moments that are put together, but definitely not these ones where, people would just walk up, Paul, and say, do you have a guitar for me or something, right?
Well, you've got to, I think the key thing to remember is this was not televised at the beginning. What was the first year, 86 or something, 1986?
Yeah.
86,
So, yes, it was a banquet in the Waldorf. That's it. There was a home movie camera or two shooting home video. That's the only record that there is on video. So the people were not thinking that they were going to be seen on it by the television audience. This was a private event, and you saw people then do things that they would never do in public. I mean, musically, of course, but you know what I mean. There was no pressure on them. If somebody, can you do a little, Proud Mary? I would say, I remember saying to John Fogerty that very first year.
Yep.
He hadn't done the song in a long time because of contractual bullshit he was going through. But he says, I don't think he would have done it anywhere else. But it was just a ballroom, and that took the pressure off. Then now it's become a polished television show, and that's wonderful in its own way. But I'm dying to see some of these early pictures of those early days. Well, if I don't want to monopolize, but I think it's so interesting. The very first year, I remember, because I was at the meetings too. There was a luncheon in Ahmet Erdogan's office the very day of the first ceremony, and they said, "Well, we can't ask these people to play. We're honoring them. What are we going to do? We'd love to hear a jam, but how can we ask them?" And it was Bill Graham who said, "How about this? We say we have amplifiers and guitars there just in case, and we say at the end of all the speeches, could we have all the inductees up to take a picture, and then we'll just see what happens." Well, they all came up on the stage. They took a picture. Kevin took it, of course. And then they just ran for the instruments. I've never seen anything like it. They picked those guitars up so fast, and then it just started to happen.
I know sometimes the stage got so crowded because the Waldorf is not a big stage. And the A-list talent that Paul had on stage jamming with him was incredible.
And I mean, we only had so many amplifiers. Nobody knew it was going to be like that. We may have had 7 amplifiers on the stage, but we had 27 guitar players. Everybody from Mick Jones, from Foreigner, to Chuck Berry, who was on the neck on the monitor wedge playing, doing bumps and grinds in a horizontal position. I've never experienced anything like it.
And they were just jamming like as friends even at that point, right, Paul? People just hanging out and trading licks and playing stuff, right?
That's right. And Bill Graham, in his inimitable way, was able to keep certain people that maybe he didn't think deserved to be on his stage, with a Jimmy Page or something, Somehow he controlled the traffic too, Yeah. And then he would come in to me and he'd say, get a guitar thing going with these 3 guys. I said, okay, and I would. That's how we worked beautifully together, Bill. God bless him. Rest in peace.
I miss Bill.
All right, well,
yes, indeed.
Alex, let's pull up the one that was number 2. This is a picture from the 1988 induction shot by Kevin, where we have George Harrison, Bob Dylan, and I think Little Richard in this photo. So let's take a look at this here. And Kevin, why don't you tell us a little bit? I know you've got a good story about trying to even shoot this photo, right?
Oh, you know what? The thing is, like Paul will tell you, the stage was so small, but back in the day at the Waldorf, they used to have all the photographers sit in chairs right in front of the stage. And you had to stay in your chair, and God forbid you stood up and blocked any of the executives sitting at the table. Bill Graham would come running up, he'd have a rolled up program and whack you in the head and make you sit down. So you had to stay where you were. and hopefully be able to capture moments like this. You know, there's certain, like this photo, I wish I was a little bit more to the left, but I couldn't move because there's photographers. There was 15 photographers in chairs sitting in front of the stage. But this photo is pretty funny. I don't know if you remember, Paul. You remember Mike Love made some comment about Mick Jagger, and you know, during the speech and stuff like that, and he didn't know Mick was there. So Mike Love took his shoes off and he was dancing around the stage during the jam. Mick Jagger went over, saw his shoes on the floor. He picked up the shoes and threw one each different way out into the audience.
Hilarious. It was a great payoff to that earlier speech.
Oh, yeah.
When Dylan became very commercial, remember, he was being honored, and he says, you know, I do 250 dates a year. You know, almost like he had his log from his agent's office. And Mike was saying, you know, you guys, he was putting everybody else down, right? The Beach Boys do 360 dates. They were talking in those kind of terms. Mike, I think, he just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that he deserved to be there just as much as everybody else did. And he did, and he sure did.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what a great shot. And you can tell from even that picture too, Kevin, that sort of it's, you know, we're looking into a moment there, right? It's sort of something that is not a staged moment. This is just these guys, all, you know, that expression on Little Richard's face alone is you know.
Oh, it's priceless. He was having such a good time. These moments, right, Paul? It's hard to get them off the stage. They don't want it to end.
It's true. Who is that to the left of Little Richard, leaning in?
That's Mike Love. That's what I was saying.
Oh, that's Mike Love right there.
That's Mike Love.
And then what about in the background between Dylan and George Harrison?
That's a cameraman.
Oh,
see the mic?
He sounds
the mic
good.
and the camera.
Yeah, oh, is that what that is in the center? It's actually like one of the home video cameras Paul was talking about.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you know, the other thing that made it difficult to shoot is that guy. He was so excited to be on stage with those guys, and he's trying to get also in front of them sometimes, and he's blocking us, you know? And I'll never forget, like, one of the photographers grabbed the guy by the jacket to pull him, and he fell our way, and we had to push him back on the stage.
Well, he thought he was going crowd surfing.
At least, Paul, you're usually behind the piano or the B3, so you've got a little protection on that stage, right?
Well, it's true, but this was totally spontaneous.
Oh, yeah.
And I used to come out from behind the keyboards and actually cue people, you know, hey, you know, Eric Clapton, go, take a solo.
Yeah.
And then I said,
wait a minute, who am I to say to Eric Clapton, take a solo? But that was the kind of, you know, turned out that was my job. It was funny.
That's awesome. The next one, Alex, if you can switch us over to the number 6. Paul, you're actually in this photo. This is a great moment from 2005. There we go. That's it. Featuring B.B. King and Buddy Guy. And Paul, we see you behind, I think, the B3 there in the background.
Yes, and I think Eric Clapton was in that number too. Yeah. Just out of frame, you know, to the left of Buddy Guy. Well, look at those legends. You know, just when I see the picture, it takes me back, and I get a little bit breathless. Because this was, you know, the 3 great guitar legends of our time, all playing together, including Clapton. This was later in the run of the show when, you know, this was a number that we had rehearsed earlier that day. But I remember Eric Clapton mentioning to me, you know, he said, Paul, don't go crazy with the rehearsal because by 11 o'clock tonight, we're all going to be in a different frame of mind. and it's true. It was like there had been no rehearsal, all spontaneous again. Just great.
But it's fun now that now we get to hang out during the rehearsals, you know? It's
sure,
a lot
I
of fun.
I bet you get a lot of good stuff during that time.
Oh, yeah.
And you see the people who not performing, right? They're just working.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, one time that one of the rehearsals that it's so memorable for me and I enjoyed so much was when Ringo was inducted and we had Paul, Ringo, I think Green Day, and everybody was just hanging out on stage. And if they weren't rehearsing, the talent was hanging out on the side of the stage, just watching, you know?
Yes, I think I have a couple of your shots. I managed to get a hold of them from that night, actually, because they were the two living Beatles, for goodness sake, playing together. That was something.
Well, Alex, you can take that one down. I'll grab another one in a minute. But let me, Kevin, come back and ask you and Paul, you and the three of us, myself included here, we're lucky enough that we get to be at some of those rehearsals. And, you know, it's always interesting watching artists work through that and trying. But, Kevin, back in the day, you'd often be able to shoot maybe at some of those. Now, a lot of artists don't even want anybody shooting at a rehearsal. Is there anything you remember from one of those moments that you were able to capture something unique?
Oh, no, the only one, you know, you got to be careful because like the women, because they're not in hair and makeup, you know, so you got to be really careful, you know, during the rehearsals. But, you know, a lot of times, you know, you get these really casual, cool moments, you know, like me and Paul were just talking about with, you know, Ringo and Paul, you know, they were hanging out and they were having a good time and they were excited to see all the talent that was there and hanging out, you know?
Yeah, having Ringo and Paul there that night, it was interesting to watch the whole thing, right? Because they were celebrities among celebrities, right? Yeah. I mean, it really was, everybody wanted to just check out what they were doing. And that jam at the end of the night was amazing too. I think I've got that coming up in a little bit. I might have one of those photos. Let's look at the next one here. It's actually not from an induction ceremony. It's from a series of great shows. I know the three of us were able to go to. Some of our members out here might have been the 25th anniversary shows. And those were just unbelievable, two incredible nights that just went on forever. Yeah, thank you, Alex. That's the first one. Of course, Aretha Franklin, Annie Lennox doing Sisters Are Doing It For Themselves. That was such an incredible performance. And this is one of those images for me, Kevin. You just captured the iconic moment for me here of the two of them performing that, right?
Oh, yeah. No, and the funny thing, we talk about rehearsals. Annie she was like a little kid with like Aretha. She's, you know, when she first came walking in, it's like, oh, I go, we got to get a picture of Aretha. She goes, oh, yes, we have to.
Yeah, and just seeing, you know, Aretha Franklin now, looking at a picture like that, it was just such an incredible part to have her. And those unique shows. Paul, I don't know, were you involved in some of that? Because it was so cool the way the artists sort of curated their own section of each part of that show, right?
Oh, it's fantastic. I was there, of course. But yes, as you say, the artists curated. Each person said, who's their idol? Who can I get to sing with me tonight? Who influenced me? It was a very cool couple of shows. 2 shows in a row, wasn't it? Sellouts at Madison Square Garden.
Alex, let's look at the next one. It's the next number 11, which here is where we had basically U2. You can see Bono in here with Mick Jagger and Fergie. And this is from when they were performing Give Me Shelter that night. What a great image this is, too, with all three of them up there. It looks like you're down low. Are you down in front of the stage in this, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm right down in the pit shooting up on them. I mean, the funny thing was Mick Jagger at the end of the song, he said, I want to thank my house band, U2.
Lovely.
That's not a bad backing band, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and Bono made some comment like, yeah, we do bar mitzvahs too, or something like that.
Right.
What if you look at even some of those, like those 2 shots, the one of Annie and Aretha, and then this, where do you like to shoot from, Kevin? If someone said you could be anywhere in the venue you want to capture a shot, is there somewhere you like, or does it depend on the show that night?
Well, it depends on the show. You know, with Madison Square Garden, the stage was kind of high. So I was in the pit, but not in the pit. I was a little bit more into like the first row, second row, hanging out in the aisles, because I don't really like shooting up somebody's nose. And I prefer being a little bit further back unless the stage is low. And then you get these really cool shots if the stage is low, like the Waldorf Astoria. The stage, you know, is kind of waist high. So you get some really nice photos.
Yeah, this was a wild stage. It was actually a giant turntable so they could be rotating throughout the night and keep the night moving with all those artists. Let's go to another one that was here in Cleveland, I think, the photo 17. It's when the Chili Peppers and Guns N' Roses were inducted. We have Anthony Kiedis and Slash back from 2012.
Another great performance. It was... God, I think Ronnie Wood even jammed this one, right, Paul? I think Ronnie Wood was on stage jamming with them too.
That's right. I do remember that. I'm right just in sticking my nose in through the curtains on the upper left. You may be able to see my little nose watching this thing. It was a very powerful jam session.
Yeah, it's
in
so
Cleveland.
hard to, pick photos from each year and narrow it down, because we have this photo and then there's a wider photo with everybody. But, going curating it with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we decided going with this photo.
Why? Why do you pick one like this rather than the big group shot? What was it about this photo
Well,
you thought?
like also too, it's like Anthony had his head, it also depends on, sometimes when you got a big group of people, it's hard to get everybody looking good. That's why I shoot a lot of photos. When you have a bigger group, you shoot more. So.
Sure, that makes sense. Well, I guess you got some great group shots too.
Oh yeah,
right?
no,
you want variety.
Totally. You need a good variety because the magazines want, also I'm shooting for the Hall of Fame, but also we got to take care of Rolling Stone magazine. Otherwise Jan would kill me.
Well,
yeah, that's right. Actually, Kevin, right? Because you got to think, just like we were talking about in the beginning, you're capturing these historic moments for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but thinking also some of these got to end up in magazines and out online after the event as well.
Oh yeah, no, in the early years, because in the early years I was shooting for Rolling Stone magazine and the Hall of Fame. So I had to the next day get my film processed right away and go right to the magazine, and they would lay it out because Jan wanted to get that magazine out right away.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at another one here. Alex is one number 19. We have Tom Petty, Jackson Browne, John Fogerty, and I think Paul's in this one as well. Paul, we'll see. Oh, yeah, there you are. What a great shot. Love the lighting on that one. And what a great lineup there of all these musicians.
Great.
Well, this was in Los Angeles, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
And this was the opening number of the show that came for the induction dinner, which was done in Los Angeles. And it was Randy Newman doing
That's right.
I Love L.A., but with these stars singing verses, trading verses and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So
Randy's on the piano to the left.
That's right. And I'm just trying to make sure that everybody remembers which two lines they were supposed to sing.
Paul, tell us a little bit about a performance like this. You were saying a little bit of, this is obviously a more recent one. It's from, like you said, the 2013 inductions in LA. How do you put together a performance like this with Randy and, John and Jackson and Tom? How does that come about?
It's all arranged in advance. Randy is okay with opening and okay with the other guys joining, and everybody really, you didn't have to ask twice. Everybody was into singing I Love LA. There was something about trying to wrangle such a big, one person come to, like We Are the World style, you sing these two lines, you sing these. And I remember that after the rehearsal, I said to Jan, well, how was it? He says, a little loose, So I had to speak to Joel Gallen. I said, I think we need one more rehearsal. And he gave it to me just before the audience was let in. All these guys were nice enough to come back.
Wow.
Set it up again, and we rehearsed one more time just to lock it in, because it was a little complicated going back and forth. And then I think we were trying to get everybody to say, we love it at the same time. Whatever it was, it was complicated, but somehow it came off for the show.
Yeah, Paul, you mentioned Joel Gallen, another person who's been in a ton of inductions, produced quite a number of them over the years. And really, really great show producer.
Yeah, and he's doing it again this year. He's back.
That's right. Yeah, in fact, you mentioned it earlier, Kevin. It's unfortunate it would have been here in Cleveland, but with the world we're living in right now, we are unable to host an in-person induction ceremony. So it's going to be on November 7th on HBO. You'll be able to watch it as more of a documentary style performance, put together for this year. But luckily, we'll be having it back in Cleveland in 2021 in the fall. So we'll make sure you guys are back out here for that. We'll be looking forward to it.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing like it when it's in Cleveland for a number of reasons. One, because it's in that amazing stadium where the Beatles played, I understand.
Yeah, public hall here.
I love that venue.
Yeah, and then, Cleveland was the first place where you opened it up to the public. not just a dinner, you know, members of the industry having dinner at tables and stuff. You still had that on the floor, but then all the seats around were members of the public. And I remember staying there's nothing like staying at a hotel in Cleveland when there's a big rock show on, because everybody from the whole Midwest comes and checks into the hotels. So you become a part of this whole party of people from all over Ohio and stuff, you know. Very rock and roll, if I may say.
Yeah, and it is. It's a week that's a party, and you know, between the museum right here, and I can look out the front window of the museum right down to where Public Hall is, where you mentioned, Paul. So this whole area of Cleveland just becomes a big party for like 4 days right around here.
Sweet.
All right, let's take a look at another great one. This one actually captures some of the backstage moments you've shot, Kevin. And personally, you know, again, being the two of us guys from Long Island originally, how can you not love Billy Joel? This one is Billy Joel and Ray Charles backstage in 1999. And, you know, I'm a keyboard player like Paul. I'm sure, Paul, you feel the same way I do as a piano player and a keyboard player. These are just two of the greatest you're going to get here, looking at them and working together. Tell us a little bit about some of these backstage moments, particularly this one when you're back at the Waldorf, how you captured some of these, Kevin.
Well, the thing I love about the Waldorf, too, is it's small. So I could run backstage or to the side of the stage and then get back to the front of the stage. Actually, I work, you know, I have a couple guys that work with me that have been shooting the Hall of Fame for a while. So I always have one of my buddies, he's shooting in the back of the house and I'm in the front, and I always have somebody backstage so we don't miss any moments when we're documenting it for the Hall of Fame. But I want to be involved with everything. So as soon as they came off stage, I followed them off stage and captured this moment. I mean, you guys are both keyboard players. These are two iconic keyboard players. And I did not want to miss this shot, you know, and I set this shot up backstage before they went in the press room.
I love how Kevin says you saw them coming off stage, you followed them to get this shot, right? That's the kind of nose a photographer like you has got to have. It's interesting to me.
Oh, listen, you got to know how, you know, create the moment, but you also got to know when the moment's going to happen. And I knew once they got off stage, they would have a moment like this, you know, and I just had to be there. I couldn't miss it.
If I remember, this was Billy Joel's induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and they got Ray Charles to make the speech about him, and he was so thrilled, you know.
Yeah.
That's exactly who he would want. You can't get more soulful than the genius, Ray Charles, and Billy Joel's the first guy to say that.
And he also commented, Billy, on Baby Grand. Remember? He loved that song.
Together, right? On the bridge, yeah. Kevin, it looks like you can just see the joy on both of their faces. Are these shots, do you have to set them up for that? Or you just say, hey, guys, I want to get a picture of you, and this is what you end up with?
You know what? This is one of those moments I followed them, and I was like, hey, guys, can I get a picture? And that's the moment after I set up the photo, and they were, you know, I got of course, I got the photo of the two of them looking into my camera, and then I just let them alone. And they were talking and laughing, you know, and I just these are the moments I like to capture, you know, when they're just organic and you're not setting, you know, I put the two of them together, but then they're chatting and they're having a good time.
That's awesome. So the shot you set them up for isn't even the one you want, right? You want this one that's 30 seconds afterwards, right?
The candid shots, those are the money shots to me.
Yeah. All right, Alex, let's jump to the next one here. We got another great one. This is all the way back from 1987. This is Bo Diddley, Chuck Berry, and Keith Richards. Man, that's a guitar jam for the ages right there.
And I think that's Benny, I forget his name in the background.
Benny King.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Benny King right in the center behind Chuck Berry, yeah.
This was, I guess, the year number 2 then.
Yeah, this is number 2. Because the first years, that one and one other one is the only years I missed. The first one I didn't miss. I don't know what happened, but I never missed any after that.
Yeah. Well, we see that great guitar of Bo Diddley's. He called it the cigar box.
Yep.
Because that's exactly what it looks like. And inside there are all kinds of electronics.
Oh
He
yeah.
hides in there. It's like some guys got him in pedals and they stomp on him with their foot, and in the guitar chain. He's got it all inside that cigar box.
Yeah.
God bless him.
Yeah, and these two guys, Keith and Chuck, they just love each other. They're a hoot together. These two guys.
Yes. Well, we read about how their relationship is kind of off and on. 1 minute Keith is punching, Chuck is punching Keith in the mouth, and the next minute they're falling all hugging and kissing each other.
I have to say, for me, one of my favorite moments with that relationship, Paul, is the scene in Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll, the Chuck Berry film, right?
Yeah.
Chuck is right, I got to say. Keith was bending that note the wrong way. But, man, Chuck Berry won't let him get away with it for half a second, right?
Yeah, amazing. Well, he can say, he's allowed to say it. Guy was one of the guys who invented rock and roll.
Yeah,
Go
absolutely.
diddly too.
Yeah, and so cool. We even right out here on the floor above where I am right now, Chuck Berry officially the very first person to ever be inducted in the Hall of Fame. And when you come to the new Hall of Fame at the museum, Chuck's image is the one that greets you into the rest of the museum. Because as you said, Paul, he's there from the moment it starts,
Well, that's so right that you guys have done that. I think it's fantastic. I hate to, when I got to go to the funeral, Chuck's funeral in St. Louis.
Wow.
I couldn't help but say, it's just the death of not only Chuck, but of rock and roll. He, he invented it, developed it. And when I saw him, gone and laid to rest, I said, man, what does this mean for the music, But then again, as Keith Richards will remind us, rock and roll will never die.
That's right. That's right. All right, let's jump to the next one. This was a really cool moment here, Kevin, you can tell us about from 1993, which is
LA.
going to capture the Cream reunion here at the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, this is LA. Yeah, I was looking forward to this one, and these guys really delivered that night. It was such a great moment. I think also the LA in Rock and Roll Hall of Fame too was the Doors were inducted, and Eddie Vedder played with the Doors.
Right. Yep.
That was a great evening.
Right. I heard about that. I was in New York doing the Letterman show, but I understand it was one of the great evenings. And Dick Clark was inducted that
Yeah, Dion inducted him.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Great.
Oh, cool.
I know you.
How fitting for Dick Clark. It was. I think it was the first time the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was in L.A. So
that's right.
It made sense to induct Dick Clark.
Absolutely.
I think there's a great shot of that in the virtual exhibit people can see after tonight too, Kevin, of you backstage with Dick Clark and Dion, in fact.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at the next one here. This is from 2004. And, Kevin, you and I were talking on the phone about this moment yesterday. I got to tell our audience here tonight, this moment, Prince performing While My Guitar Gently Weeps, is probably one of the most watched guitar solos, certainly from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame archives. It is also, we have here in the museum a fantastic immersive experience in Arcana Theater called The Power of Rock that takes you through, it's a film that was put together by Jonathan Demme before he passed away. It was the last project he worked on, had access to all of the archives of the Hall of Fame, and made a 16-minute film that just really shows you the incredible history of the music and all these great moments from rock and roll inductions. This performance is the one that ends the night. And, your Prince's performance is so mesmerizing. But in the background is Tom Petty and Jeff Lynne, Steve Winwood on keyboards. But this performance was just something. And you've got him in this, iconic shot right here, Kevin. Tell us a little bit about putting this together.
So I work with Prince. I worked with Prince for many years. And one of the things Prince said to me, I don't want you to be in front of the stage. I was like, all right, that's fine. And later during the solo, I saw why. So they started playing, when they went into the song, Prince was on the side of the stage in dark. And then, Joe Gallen did this great moment. when Prince started jamming, the light hit Prince, and he worked his way to the middle of the stage, and he was jamming. And then he turned around, and his back was to the audience, and he's jamming, and then he just fell backwards, and his bodyguard was there, center stage, and he fell into his bodyguard's arms, and he's jamming, playing, and then his bodyguard, and it seemed like it was slow motion. It just, he had it down how to do it, and he just pushed Prince back up, and Prince just was jamming, and then turned toward the audience and just was ripping it up. And then when the song ended, Prince took his guitar and went, whoosh, and the thing must have went like 10 feet in the air, and his bodyguard was right in front of the stage. Good, grabbed the guitar, Prince walked off stage. It was amazing. I was dumb. I was like, my jaw hit the floor. I was like, this is cool as shit.
What an amazing moment, and what an incredible musician. Paul, did you ever have a chance to work with Prince?
Let's see. I think I have to say no. I was there for this number, watching every particular rundown, every single rundown. And I must say that he saved all that for the air. He didn't do any of that. He was over on the side, spot hit him. He didn't move to the center during the rehearsal. And we're all saying, no, I guess he's going to play from over there. But none of that stuff with the bodyguard, he saved it all and just blew everybody's mind.
Wow.
And Petty was singing. This was a tribute to George Harrison, who had died earlier that year. And Petty was singing While My Guitar Gently Weeps. And Petty, you may remember him, his blessed memory, he likes to rehearse. He did it over and over again to make sure it was right. And Prince, every time, just stayed over there cool. And then, and then broke it out at the end. There was a time, though, when I went to see Prince when he was experimenting with a Las Vegas residency.
Right.
And he was at the Rio.
Yep.
And they had built him his own showroom and another club, his own club, because they knew that after a huge show in the big showroom, he got to go to a little club and play 3 a.m., so he was doing that there. And then invited me to hang out with him afterwards. And he was very normal and just a nice guy, I kind of unbelievable. And then, at 7 a.m., he starts to order breakfast for everybody. And I said, I think I got to go to bed. But, that was the one time I actually got to hang with him. What a thrill.
Yeah, no, I did some of those Vegas shows too. And it was just, those were incredible. He always liked to, I was so blessed to work with him and got to know him very well. And he was so cool and very funny. My wife and my assistant would go, he's funny? I'm going, you have no idea. And then thank God they finally got to hang out with me and him, and they got to see how funny he is. And right, Paul? Charming guy.
Absolutely. You got to remember, he kind of created that whole Morris Day character.
Yeah, that whole Minneapolis sound, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the plot of Purple Rain, and and the villain and the comical Morris Day and the time, all that came right out of his head.
Yeah, what an incredible musician. I think he's known for all of his songwriting, his great singing, but his guitar playing. I mean, I'd put him up there as one of the best guitar players in rock and roll. He was just so good.
Oh, yeah.
This is where he shows you that. This moment right here.
Yeah.
But he could play anything. I wish, there was so many times I would just be hanging out with him, and he would just be playing the piano. He would just jam out on the piano or the drums or the bass. He could play anything. I was like, oh my God, this guy is so incredibly talented.
I think, Paul, there's a funny story. That first record by the time, before they were even Morris Day in the time, I think Prince just played that whole record and basically had the guys come in and sing on that. It was just all basically Prince playing on that record.
I heard about that too. Yeah. He could do anything.
Yeah. The next one here is an image, actually, you mentioned earlier, Kevin, is one of those moments of capturing, the lightning in the bottle from 2015, Billy Joe Armstrong and Green Day. And that is such a great image. It's actually, that image is one of the iconic images for this exhibit as sort of the key image for it.
Yeah.
But what a great look that is. lighting cutting across the top, the triangles behind them, the sort of pyramid of Billy Joe himself, the way he's standing. What a great shot, Kevin.
Well, he's flying. You got him flying, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, he came from by the amps and jumped in the air, and that's when I nailed him. The cool thing is, if you look on top of the amp, he put his Rock and Roll Hall of Fame
the statue. Yeah.
Yes.
You know, the thing, you know, through the years, so to see how everything has changed, you remember, Paul, like they'd wait to perform at the end at the Waldorf. Now they'll have people be inducted and then perform, which is great. I love the flow of the show now, the way they do this.
Well, it's a real show now, as we were saying. It was just a dinner with no rehearsed performances, just speeches, and then finally a jam at the end. You know, so now it has evolved, and now it's something that we can watch on TV, and I can't wait to see what you guys do this year. We can't be there in person.
What also is cool too, Paul, is now, you know, I'd want to go look at a performance and I'd go on YouTube and you'd watch this horrible video from a performance from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now the Hall of Fame has vamped up their website and you get to see these quality performances now. It's not this horrible quality you see on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. Well, just somebody at a table.
Website.
All we had was somebody at a table with their iPhone.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah, and it's been fun, you know, over the last couple of months as we've sort of all been, you know, sheltering at home and all these other things. We were able to go through that archive and pull out a lot of our classic footage that hasn't been seen in years.
Oh, yeah.
If you go to rockhall.com, you can even check out some of that great stuff that has been kind of literally hidden in the vault for a long time.
Oh, yeah. And definitely go and check out that Prince performance.
It'll melt your mind.
I know. All of them. I mean, even this one, too. I mean, there's so many iconic performances now on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame website.
The next photo here is from another Cleveland induction in 2018. I love the look of this shot, Kevin. It's just so, it's so perfect with Lauryn Hill here honoring Nina Simone. And, you know, we were all thinking, how's this going to work and come together? Man, did Lauryn Hill and the Roots were backing her up. What, you know, I think that for me was one of the best performances of the night. No knock on anybody else, but this was just such a transcendental moment. And I think you really captured that here.
And Lauryn, she hasn't been around for a while. So nobody's, you know, seen her perform in a long time. And she came here and knocked it out of the park.
So what are we're seeing here, her live in the middle, and then that's like a big slide of her that was the backdrop, right?
Yeah, the video screen of Nina Simone.
Oh, that's Nina Simone, of course. Yeah. Picture of her, and I guess that's Quest on the drums on our left. Sure.
Yeah, just a beautiful picture there. And then the last one I had was another one from LA's 2013 when Hart got inducted. Another great night and a great performance there.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and I think Chris Cornell inducted them that night. He inducted them into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and then he jammed with them, I think right after this song, Chris and Mike McCready performed with Hart.
Yeah, that was nice. And that was the night that Rush, my cohorts from Canada finally got inducted. And the Foo Fighters, I think, were the inductors. And didn't they come on dressed as Rush and do a number?
They did. They were in the classic kind of Rush 70s white outfit.
Yeah, the white suit.
Had the kimonos and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they had the wigs on with the long hair.
That's right. Well, excellent, Alex. You can pull those down now. Kevin, just a slice, literally tonight, of the photography you've done for the inductions. I'll remind everybody, live right now, starting today, you can check out the virtual exhibit of Kevin's work on rockhall.com immediately following this. Don't drop off yet. We've got a little bit more in store for you here. But Kevin, thank you so much. I just want to say thank you on behalf of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for working with us. And people should know you really did help to curate this exhibit and pick the photos and went through all of your great work. Tell us a little bit about what that experience was like over the last, couple months here now, having to go through that backlog of yours and find these photos to represent it.
I totally enjoyed it because it brought back so many great memories of through the years and the great performances that I actually, I was going online to watch some of the performances, and I was so happy to see that you guys put them on your website that I didn't have to go to, YouTube. Now it's like when you search it, it comes right up, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And it was such a great pleasure, but it was a lot of film to go through. The digital stuff's easy, but going through all the slides and then you have to scan stuff, because a lot of stuff wasn't digitized.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you again so much, Kevin. I look forward when we actually get them framed and up on the wall here in the fall.
I can't wait.
Excited. So I want to open up some questions from the audience out there. Thank you again to all of you members and donors who have joined us tonight. I've got a few questions for Paul and Kevin here that come in from our audience. So let's start here with Bob Class, if you're out there. Hello, Bob, who emailed this question into us before the event and says, doesn't mention inductions, but says, what were the most memorable Cleveland events that either of you have attended? So we could make it inductions, but if you guys have other good Cleveland stories, let's hear them too.
Wow. Well, how can you not? I mean, certainly the induction of Ringo, the one where we were talking about, with Paul doing the speech about him, and then the two of them playing together, and I was in that spot of playing the piano for that whole thing. How can you top that? Yeah. And then I do remember though the House of Blues Cleveland opening that I appeared at, and Dan Aykroyd had a big motorcycle, all a million Harleys out in honor of that, and Les Paul played. That was a great night too. But these, you got it here. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame appears there, does its induction there very often. I don't think you can top it anymore.
Yeah, I've had so many fond memories. The groundbreaking, that was really cool.
Were you here for that too, Kevin?
Yeah, I was there for that. And I got the shot of everybody lined up with the shovels in the hat. And the funny thing is, at the end,
Kevin, I forgot that was your photo, that iconic shot, right? That's got with the shovels. Amazing.
And then when everything was over, I was standing there. I took some pictures of Pete Townsend with, I think, Billy Joel and Chuck Berry and stuff. And
they've got the hard hats on.
And Pete's standing there with the hat and shovel, and he said to somebody, he goes, what do I do with this? They go, oh, it's for you. He goes, I don't want it. And I go, can I have it? And I have it. I got the shovel in the helmet, the hard hat. Yeah.
Oh man, that's amazing.
Love it.
And then another time in Cleveland, the concert. One of my, I had an exhibit once before at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and one of my favorite shots that I've ever taken in my career is when Bob Dylan and Bruce Springsteen were playing together at that concert, and they're singing on one mic. And I actually gave Bruce a print of it, and I think I also gave Bob a print of it.
Wow.
And then every year going for the inductions that they've had in Cleveland, me and my wife love going to Cleveland and just hanging out.
Yeah. That's those are awesome memories, Kevin. I'll be honest, I forgot those groundbreaking photos were yours. They're so great to look at those. We've got another one here from Alan, who's a charter member. Thank you, Alan. Keep that membership going. And this one is actually a question for Paul. Paul, which musical guest is the most fun to have joined in with your band, either at the inductions or he says even on the Letterman show? Who's somebody you always enjoy having joining with the band to play?
When James Brown used to appear, and he did it a number of times. But the very first time, back in '82, he was one of the first guys to do it. I think he'd heard me playing with my band, some of his stuff, and he's, maybe I'll come on and do something with them. Well, it was pandemonium. He did 3 songs, 2 that were almost rehearsed, and the third one, no rehearsal at all. He just said, no, I'd like to do right now. I'd like to do one more song, and we did. and Letterman just gave it up to him gladly. He took over the show. So that I remember that certainly.
That's awesome. Yeah, when James Brown takes over the show, you got to let it happen, right? There's no stopping that.
You want it to happen, and all the talk show hosts they all want to be in control. But this was, David just said, "We'll take a commercial, we'll come back, do whatever you want." And he did.
Now, did you guys play after the show ended? Did you ever jam?
No, we didn't. No, are you kidding? It was over. The crew got to go home. We don't want to go into golden time. But I certainly, I do remember doing the Saturday Night Live show not too long ago when my friend Martin Short hosted the Christmas show and Paul McCartney was the guest. He was the musical guest with his band. Well, at 6 p.m., Paul does a sound check and then does a little show, does a half an hour just for the crew. And when that show ends at 1 a.m., he stays on, Paul stays on, does 45-minute show at the end.
Wow.
And he says, I don't know how to do it any other way. So
cool.
He does it. I will tell you that for sure.
He's so much fun.
Sure is.
Kevin, here's a great one for you from Dave Hirsch, I think it's pronounced, who put it in the Q&A here. And Dave wants to know, in New York, you have access to so many great rock and roll venues. Which one was your favorite to shoot? And he wants to say something that wasn't, Madison Square Garden or Nassau Coliseum, a smaller venue potentially. He also mentioned that he likes Zebra as well. So I guess you and I aren't alone in that, Kevin.
But Paul agree with me. There's nothing like the Beacon Theater. That's
a fabulous rock and roll house, isn't it? It turned out to be a great rock and roll house. Why is that, Kevin?
The sound is great in there. When the Stones played there, when Martin Scorsese directed that show,
the
show is incredible. And then just the architecture in that building, it's iconic. It's so beautiful. But there's a lot of there's so many great places. There's the Hammerstein Ballroom is good. Irving Plaza, there's a lot of the old Ritz.
Ritz.
That was a favorite of mine, man.
And I think they just renovated. I haven't seen it since they renovated, so they renovated that. And I'm just trying to think. There's so many great places.
All right, here's one we've got from Lisa, who asked this on the Q&A. Who's asking, she says she's completing a graduate school research project right now. And she wants to know, do you feel that music has had a role and an impact right now in times of crisis? How do you think music has helped all of us, or what role has it played in our lives as we are all, in this unique world we're living in this video chat we're here tonight? What do you guys think about the role of music in this moment in history?
Well, for me, I will say that it has been incredibly important historically. One remembers the civil rights movement of the 60s and how key music was. I'll never forget watching that Martin Luther King march. I was a kid in Canada at the time, but when Peter, Paul, and Mary took the stage and sang Blowing in the Wind, it just, as a younger person, it made me so proud to see them there. And if the British kids hadn't come over here saying your black music is the best music in the world, I don't know if we Americans would have realized it early enough. I think that had a lot to do with the civil rights movement and getting going. As far as music now in the quarantine, well, certainly people use it inside to keep themselves together. It's incredibly valuable for that. I don't know if I've heard an anthem for the Black Lives Matter movement, which is back, and I wouldn't necessarily be the first one to hear it, but am I wrong? Could music come back stronger right now and have a bigger role? Maybe it could.
Yeah, I think some really powerful younger voices out there.
I've been shooting some of the protests for Getty Images.
Really?
So I shot Jean-Baptiste performed in front of the Brooklyn Library with another piano player, this blind piano player. I forgot his name, but it was so moving for those guys to be playing in front of the Black Lives protest. And I was just so happy to be there to document that, because I was there when I got maced at Barclays Center.
Wow.
Yeah, when I was shooting the protest, which was most horrible experience for me. Because let me tell you, that stuff not only burns your eyes, it burns your skin. And then the next night I went and I shot over by Union Square when they were torching all the police cars, and it was total chaos. And I was like, oh. But, you know, that second night driving home on the radio, you know, they were playing John Lennon's music. You know, imagine all the people, you know, I was like, oh, what a song to be coming on after what I just photographed.
Yeah, Kevin, it's amazing to think about, you know, you kind of putting yourself in potential harm's way and doing all that. But those, if we think about photography in general, not just the rock photography we've talked about, they have helped capture some of those iconic moments in American history, right? And really helped to bring some of that into people's own lives that can experience it and be there. So thank you for doing that. I think those are going to be incredibly important photographs of yours moving forward. It's great to hear you're doing that.
Thanks.
All right, let's take another one here from our audience. Diana Fall, who asked, do you have any sort of questions or icebreakers that you use to communicate with artists that you want to photograph? Is there anything that you'll say to them or do, or a quirky thing you have, she's asking, to kind of set up a photograph?
Oh, my thing is, I always, the one thing is, you know, people will say, how did you get to where you are, like young photographers? And I always say, respect. You don't get respect if you don't treat people with respect. So you got to respect people. So if, you know, it drives me nuts when I'm at an event and there's two people talking and I let them talk and I let them see that I got my camera, you know? And then I'll go, when I let them finish talking, and I go, hey, let me get a picture of you. And then when they're done looking at my camera, they start talking again, then I'll take a picture. And, you know, because the flash is annoying. So if they see I respect them and wait to set up a photo, and then after the setup photo, they're talking, they don't mind me taking a flash. I can't tell you how many great moments I missed because I'm standing there waiting to create a moment, and some photographer will come up and go, bah, 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 bah. And they'll go, oh, no pictures. And I'll be like, great, thanks a lot.
Oh, man. We have one more here, too, for Paul from Rudolph Chavez out there listening. And it's a follow-up question from an earlier conversation we had here about Prince. He wants to know if Paul, or even you, Kevin, if either of you guys remembered, how much of Prince's guitar solo there on While My Guitar Gently Weeps was improvised. You mentioned those rehearsals. Was he playing that, or you mentioned he kind of left it all on the stage? So Rudolph wanted to know, was that solo improvised in the final show?
He saved it for the stage, is what I was saying. And it was all improvised. Certainly he was, in each rundown, he was planning it out and, you know, maybe planning the build and thinking about things, but he never played it the same way twice in any of the rundowns. So absolutely all improvised.
Amazing.
Totally.
Well, aside from questions from the audience, Kevin and Paul, I know you guys have, you know, known each other for a long time and been in each other's orbit. Anything you guys want to add and talk about before we wrap the evening up at all?
I'm just looking forward to seeing Paul in another induction.
Sweet of you. I want to say what you said, Kevin, struck me. How did you get where you are? Respecting the people, respecting the artists. I've got to say the same is true of me. In the times when I was successful, it was because I was a fan first, but that thing, you got to remember, respect the artists. It's their music. You're trying to feature them. Once in a while, and when the pressure's on and somebody, you know, we got 5 minutes left for the rehearsal, Paul. Well, then I might, you know, sometimes I'll blow it, you know. Buddy guy, can you play that? You know, no, you don't say that to buddy guy. Well, yeah. So you learn, you make mistakes, you learn, but you always have to try to remember, even though you might make a mistake, don't do it again. Don't lose that respect for your idols.
But through the years, now you have gained respect from them, so you know which artists you could go up to and say, hey, I want you to do this, and they'll listen to you, right? Because they do that to me.
Yes, yes, but once in a while. You got it.
Well, you
Depends
got
on
to
the
pick
weather.
the moment.
That's right. It depends on the weather and everything
Yeah.
else.
Well, let me wrap up by saying much respect to both of you gentlemen. Thank you so much. Paul Shaffer, an honor to be with you tonight, sir. Such a great musician who's been at the inductions and such a great part of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Kevin, your photographs captured those moments, and we're so excited that you did this exhibit with us, that we can share it online and here at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in the fall. Thank you so much to both of you for being here and doing this. And we made it work. Paul, we got your computer working all right, and we're in good shape.
Man, I'm not exactly a tech master, but somehow they got me on. Thank you both. I've had a great time reminiscing and looking at those old shots. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I can't wait for you to see the rest of it, the rest of the images. And then when everything's hanging in the museum.
Beautiful. Thank you both. Had a great time.
And thank you to all of you out there, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame members. Without your support, we couldn't do what we do here every day. Thank you for joining us tonight for this special event with Kevin Mazur and Paul Shaffer. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Guys.
Stay safe.